In a quiet village called Umuoma, there lived a wealthy and successful man named Chibuzo. He was known for his wisdom, but he had one flaw: his pride. Despite being admired by many, Chibuzo always believed he was superior to the villagers. One day, his mother returned from a distant village with a beautiful young woman named Ijeoma. "This is the girl I have chosen for you to marry," his mother said proudly. Chibuzo frowned. "You expect me to marry a village girl? Look at her. She knows nothing of the city life or my status," he complained, turning away in disgust. His mother was not swayed by his words. "Ijeoma is more than what you see. She is humble, intelligent, and will make you a great wife if you allow her into your heart," she said calmly. Chibuzo, however, scoffed and refused to give Ijeoma a chance. He made it clear that he only agreed to marry her out of respect for his mother's wishes, not because he saw any value in her. Ijeoma, on the other hand, remained quiet and respectful, praying that Chibuzo would one day see beyond her village upbringing. After the wedding, Ijeoma moved into Chibuzo's large home, but their marriage was far from happy. Chibuzo treated her like a servant rather than his wife. He never spoke to her kindly, and he spent most of his time away from home, working in the city. Ijeoma, despite feeling unwanted, continued to fulfill her duties, caring for the household and patiently waiting for Chibuzo to warm up to her. Days turned into months, and Ijeoma began to realize that winning Chibuzo's heart would be harder than she imagined. No matter how hard she tried to please him, he always found fault in her. The villagers gossiped about their marriage, but Ijeoma remained silent, believing that one day Chibuzo would appreciate her efforts. One day, a wealthy merchant came to Umuoma, seeking Chibuzo's help in finalizing a large business deal. The merchant was impressed with Chibuzo's reputation and invited him to an important meeting in the city. However, just before the meeting, Chibuzo fell ill. Frustrated, he cursed his misfortune and feared losing the deal. Ijeoma, seeing her husband in distress, decided to act. She had overheard Chibuzo talking about the business deal and had quietly taken notes, although she had never been involved in such matters before. Ijeoma took it upon herself to attend the meeting on Chibuzo's behalf. With grace and wisdom, she presented Chibuzo's ideas to the merchant, surprising everyone with her knowledge and confidence. When Chibuzo heard about Ijeoma's actions, he was furious. "How dare you interfere in my business?" he shouted, unwilling to believe that she could have succeeded. Ijeoma stood silently, her eyes filled with hurt but not anger. A few days later, the merchant returned with exciting news. The deal had gone through, thanks to Ijeoma's quick thinking. For the first time, Chibuzo was forced to acknowledge Ijeoma's intelligence. He couldn't understand how a village girl could have managed something he had spent years perfecting. But instead of thanking her, his pride blinded him, and he grew even more resentful. He started distancing himself from her even more, afraid that others would think he was weak for allowing a woman to handle his affairs. As word spread through the village about Ijeoma's success, the villagers began to admire her more. They whispered about her bravery and intelligence, but Chibuzo refused to listen. His pride kept him from acknowledging the truth, even though deep down he knew that Ijeoma had saved his reputation. Ijeoma, despite her husband's coldness, continued to manage the household with grace. She took care of his affairs in secret, ensuring that all went smoothly. But the village elders who had heard about Ijeoma's efforts decided to pay Chibuzo a visit. They wanted to praise him for having such a wise and capable wife. "You are truly blessed, Chibuzo," one elder said. "A wife like Ijeoma is a rare jewel." Chibuzo, embarrassed by their words, clenched his fists in frustration. He could not bear the thought of his wife being praised more than him, so he rudely dismissed the elders, leaving them surprised and disappointed. Chibuzo's resentment toward Ijeoma grew deeper. He began to treat her even worse, constantly finding ways to belittle her. "You think you are better than me now, don't you?" he hissed one evening. "You are just a village girl, nothing more." Ijeoma remained calm, refusing to respond to his hurtful words. She knew that arguing would only make things worse. Despite his cruelty, Ijeoma continued to manage his affairs. She would wake up early, tend to the house, and handle the business matters that Chibuzo neglected. Slowly, her quiet strength began to win over those who doubted her. People began to come to Ijeoma for advice, and her wisdom became well known across the land. Yet, the more respect she earned, the more bitter Chibuzo became. One day, a neighboring chief, Chief Obina, visited Chibuzo's home. He had heard of Ijeoma's wisdom and wanted her help in settling a dispute between his sons. Chibuzo, Chief Obina said, "I have heard of your wife's intelligence. I would like her to mediate the matter for me. Her judgment is known to be fair and wise." Chibuzo was furious. How could anyone ask his wife for advice instead of him? Without consulting Ijeoma, Chibuzo rudely turned the chief away. "My wife is not a mediator. I am the man of this house, and I handle all matters," he said coldly. The chief, surprised by Chibuzo's arrogance, left in silence. When Ijeoma found out what had happened, she was hurt but remained patient, praying that one day Chibuzo would learn to value her. As the months passed, Chibuzo's business began to fail. His pride kept him from asking for help, and he refused to let Ijeoma continue managing his affairs. The deals that once flowed effortlessly now slipped through his fingers. The villagers, who once respected him, now murmured behind his back, wondering why he wouldn't let his capable wife assist him. One evening, a terrible storm hit the village. The wind howled, and the rain poured down like never before. In the chaos, Chibuzo's farmland was destroyed, and many of his animals were lost. He stood in the middle of his ruined property, overwhelmed with despair. Ijeoma approached him gently, offering her hand. "Let me help you," she said softly. "Together we can rebuild." But Chibuzo, blinded by pride, angrily pushed her away. "I don't need your help," he yelled, walking off into the darkness. Seeing Chibuzo's downfall, the village elders decided to step in. They called a meeting with him, hoping to offer guidance. "Chibuzo," one elder began, "you are a wise man, but even the wisest of men need help. Your wife is a gift and she wants to support you. Do not let pride destroy what you have built." But Chibuzo was too stubborn to listen. He crossed his arms and refused to take their advice. Back at home, Ijeoma continued to support the family in secret. She sold some of her belongings to ensure they had enough to eat and kept the household running smoothly, even though Chibuzo never acknowledged her efforts. The elders watched from afar, wondering how long Chibuzo's pride would stand in the way of his happiness. Despite Chibuzo's refusal to let Ijeoma help, she began making quiet moves to save their family. She discreetly contacted Chibuzo's former business partners, mending the relationships he had strained through his arrogance. She took on small jobs around the village, using the money to slowly rebuild their farm. All the while, she remained humble and quiet, hoping that one day Chibuzo would realize the depth of her love for him. The villagers marveled at Ijeoma's patience. They saw her hard work and began to respect her even more. They could not understand why Chibuzo refused to see the treasure he had in his wife. Meanwhile, Chibuzo continued to struggle, unaware that Ijeoma was the one saving him from complete ruin. Months passed, and Chibuzo's pride kept him from seeing the full extent of Ijeoma's silent support. The villagers often spoke in hushed tones about how Ijeoma, through her quiet resilience, was holding their household together. Yet Chibuzo remained blind to her efforts. His business was collapsing, and he found himself struggling to maintain his once proud image. One day, Chibuzo received a message from his largest business partner, informing him that they would no longer be working with him. This was a devastating blow. Unable to cope with the stress, he stormed home in a fit of rage. He saw Ijeoma sitting quietly in the courtyard, sewing a garment. Without thinking, he yelled, "This is all your fault. If you had stayed in the village where you belong, none of this would be happening." Ijeoma, shocked but not broken, simply looked at him, her eyes filled with sadness. She knew that deep down, his anger wasn't truly about her. It was about his own failures. As Chibuzo spiraled into despair, Ijeoma's quiet work behind the scenes began to bear fruit. She had successfully convinced one of Chibuzo's former business partners to give him another chance. The partner, a wealthy trader named Nkem, had always admired Ijeoma's wisdom and grace. When she approached him with a plan to salvage Chibuzo's failing business, Nkem agreed to help, on one condition: Chibuzo had to ask for the help himself. Ijeoma knew this would be difficult. She understood her husband's pride better than anyone, but she believed that this opportunity was their last hope. That night, as Chibuzo sat in their living room, staring blankly at the walls, Ijeoma gently approached him. "There is a way to save your business," she said softly, "but you must swallow your pride and ask for help." Chibuzo glared at her, too ashamed to admit he needed assistance. He refused to listen, but Ijeoma's words lingered in his mind. Chibuzo spent days wrestling with his pride. His mind kept returning to Ijeoma's words, but he couldn't bring himself to act. "How could I, a man of my stature, ask for help?" he thought bitterly. His pride had been his shield for so long that he didn't know how to let it go. Meanwhile, Ijeoma continued to work behind the scenes, keeping their household afloat through her clever strategies and hard work. One evening, after a particularly long and stressful day, Chibuzo overheard two villagers talking about his situation. "It's a shame, really. If only he wasn't so proud his wife could save him," one said. "Yes," the other replied, "Ijeoma is a blessing, but pride blinds the heart." Their words stung, and for the first time, Chibuzo began to question himself. Was his pride worth losing everything? The next morning, Chibuzo woke up, feeling an unfamiliar weight in his chest. He glanced at Ijeoma, who was already up, preparing the day's meal. For the first time in a long while, he felt a deep sense of guilt. Without saying a word, he left the house and headed to Nkem's office. His heart raced as he walked, each step a battle between his pride and his growing realization that he could no longer do this alone. When Chibuzo finally arrived at Nkem's office, he stood outside for a long time, debating whether to go in. After what felt like hours, he knocked on the door. Nkem welcomed him with a knowing smile. "I've been expecting you, Chibuzo," he said warmly. Chibuzo's voice was barely above a whisper as he spoke. "I need your help, Nkem." With that simple admission, Chibuzo felt a burden lift from his shoulders, though he knew the road ahead would still be difficult. With Nkem's support, Chibuzo's business began to recover. Nkem offered him a deal that allowed him to regain control over his finances and rebuild his reputation. But more than that, Nkem's help came with valuable advice that Chibuzo had been too proud to accept before. He realized that his success did not depend solely on his strength, but on the support of others, especially his wife, Ijeoma, who had orchestrated the entire opportunity. Back at home, Ijeoma noticed the subtle changes in her husband. He no longer lashed out at her, and he began spending more time at home. Though he never said it outright, she could see in his actions that he was beginning to appreciate her, even if his pride kept him from admitting it fully. Chibuzo's business grew steadily, and his financial troubles started to fade. But with this new success came an inner realization. His greatest wealth wasn't his business or his money, it was Ijeoma. Late one night, after a long day of work, Chibuzo sat at the dinner table, watching Ijeoma as she quietly prepared their meal. For the first time, he truly saw her, the sacrifices she had made, the strength she had shown, and the love she had given him without asking for anything in return. He cleared his throat, his voice hesitant. "Ijeoma," he began, "I've been wrong. I've let my pride blind me to what really matters. You have been my rock and I didn't even notice. I don't deserve your kindness, but I want to try to be better." Ijeoma, taken aback by his words, looked at him with tears in her eyes. "I have always loved you, Chibuzo. All I ever wanted was for you to see me, not as a village girl, but as your partner." Chibuzo's admission of his faults marked the beginning of their healing. For the first time, they started working together as partners. Ijeoma helped him restructure his business, and Chibuzo began to involve her in important decisions, finally recognizing her wisdom and intelligence. Their relationship, once cold and distant, began to grow warmer, filled with mutual respect and understanding. As they spent more time together, Chibuzo found himself falling in love with his wife in ways he had never imagined. He admired her strength, her patience, and her unwavering loyalty. "How did I not see this before?" he often wondered. Ijeoma, though cautious, began to open her heart to him again, hopeful that their marriage could finally become what she had always dreamed it would be. Just as things were improving between Chibuzo and Ijeoma, a test of their newfound love and unity arrived. Chibuzo's estranged cousin, Obiora, returned to the village. Obiora had always been envious of Chibuzo's wealth and success, and his jealousy had caused a rift between them many years ago. Now, hearing of Chibuzo's rise from near ruin, Obiora returned with an agenda of his own. One afternoon, while Chibuzo was away on business, Obiora visited their home. He approached Ijeoma with false kindness, trying to gather information about Chibuzo's business and his relationship with her. Ijeoma, sensing Obiora's ill intentions, remained polite but distant. She refused to let him manipulate her, knowing that his return could cause trouble for her husband. Obiora's true motives soon became clear. He had come back not to reconcile with Chibuzo, but to take advantage of his newfound success. He started spreading rumors in the village, telling people that Chibuzo's success was due to Ijeoma, using charms and magic to control him. The rumors spread like wildfire, and soon people began to question Ijeoma's wisdom and intentions. When Chibuzo returned from his business trip, he was shocked to hear the rumors. At first he was furious and wanted to confront Obiora, but Ijeoma, calm as ever, advised him to remain patient. Rumors are like the wind, Chibuzo. They will pass if you don't feed them. Let us remain focused on what matters, our family and our business, she said. Chibuzo, though still angry, trusted Ijeoma's wisdom and chose not to react to Obiora's lies. Obiora, frustrated that his plan wasn't working, decided to take things further. He began visiting Chibuzo's business partners, trying to convince them that Chibuzo was being controlled by Ijeoma's charms. He spread malicious lies, hoping to tarnish Chibuzo's reputation and steal his business opportunities. One day, one of Chibuzo's partners, a man named Ekene, approached him and asked directly, Chibuzo, there are strange rumors about your wife. Is there any truth to them? Chibuzo was taken aback. His first instinct was to explode in anger, but he remembered Ijeoma's advice to stay calm. No, he replied firmly. My wife is a woman of integrity and wisdom. These rumors are nothing but the lies of a jealous man. Ekene, reassured by Chibuzo's confidence, decided to ignore Obiora's words, but the damage was already being done. When Chibuzo finally confronted Obiora, it was not with anger, but with disappointment. Why have you come back to cause chaos in my life, Obiora? Chibuzo asked, his voice calm but firm. I have worked hard to rebuild everything and my wife has stood by me through it all. Why are you spreading these lies? Obiora, cornered, tried to justify his actions, claiming that he was only looking out for Chibuzo, but Chibuzo knew better. You are jealous, Chibuzo said. You have always been jealous of me, and now that I have found success again, you cannot stand it. But I will not let you ruin what I have worked so hard to build. With that, Chibuzo turned his back on Obiora, making it clear that he would no longer entertain his cousin's schemes. As Obiora's lies continued to unravel, the villagers began to see the truth. They had watched Ijeoma's character over the years and knew that she was not the kind of woman who would resort to charms or deceit. Slowly, they began to distance themselves from Obiora, and many of them came to apologize to Ijeoma and Chibuzo for believing the rumors. One by one, Chibuzo's business partners also came back, expressing their trust in him and his wife. The rumors, which had once threatened to destroy everything, eventually died down, leaving Obiora isolated and disgraced. Ijeoma, as always, remained graceful and calm, forgiving those who had wronged her and focusing on the future. With Obiora's departure and the restoration of their reputation, Chibuzo and Ijeoma's life returned to peace. But Chibuzo was deeply affected by the ordeal. It made him reflect on his past actions and how, not too long ago, he had been the one filled with pride and distrust. He realized how close he had come to losing everything because of his own flaws. One evening, Chibuzo sat with Ijeoma and said, I have learned so much from you, Ijeoma. I was once like Obiora, full of pride and blinded by jealousy, but you, with your wisdom and patience, have taught me the true meaning of love and humility. Ijeoma smiled softly and replied, We all have something to learn, Chibuzo. What matters is that we grow from our mistakes and become better. Chibuzo and Ijeoma's story became an inspiration in the village. They were known not only for their success, but also for the strength of their marriage and the lessons they had learned along the way. Young couples in Umuoma looked up to them, seeking their advice on how to build a strong and lasting relationship. Ijeoma, in particular, became a mentor to many young women, teaching them about patience, humility, and the importance of standing by one's partner through thick and thin. The elders often spoke of Chibuzo's transformation, using his story as a reminder that pride could destroy even the greatest of men if left unchecked. 1 year after the ordeal with Obiora, Chibuzo and Ijeoma's life took another turn, this time a joyous one. Ijeoma found out she was expecting their first child. The news spread through the village quickly, and the people of Umuoma were overjoyed for them. After all they had endured, the arrival of a child was seen as a blessing and a sign that their bond had been truly strengthened. Chibuzo, who had once taken everything for granted, was overwhelmed with gratitude. He devoted himself even more to Ijeoma, caring for her in every way possible as her pregnancy progressed. He attended to her needs, ensuring she was comfortable, and often expressed his excitement about becoming a father. Ijeoma, who had been patient and strong for so long, felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. This child is a symbol of our love and the lessons we've learned, she often whispered to herself. On a peaceful morning, with the birds singing in the trees, Ijeoma gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The entire village celebrated, and Chibuzo was filled with indescribable joy. He held his son in his arms, tears streaming down his face, as he realized the enormity of the love he felt for his family. For the first time in his life, Chibuzo understood that true wealth was not in material possessions or status, but in the love and unity of family. They named their son Ugochukwu, meaning God's crown, a reminder of the grace that had carried them through the darkest times and blessed them with new beginnings. As Chibuzo gazed at his newborn son, he whispered, "I will raise you to be a humble and wise man, just like your mother." Ijeoma smiled at Chibuzo, her heart filled with love and peace. Their journey, though difficult, had brought them to this moment of pure happiness. As the years passed, Chibuzo and Ijeoma's family grew, and their bond only deepened. They continued to thrive in the village, not just as successful business people, but as pillars of wisdom and love. The villagers often came to them for advice, and Chibuzo, once blinded by pride, had become a humble and wise leader in the community. One evening, as they sat together by the fire, Chibuzo reflected on all they had been through. "Ijeoma," he began, "I have learned that life's greatest lessons are often taught through hardship. I was once so proud, so blind to the beauty and strength you brought into my life. But through you, I learned that love, humility, and patience are the true pillars of happiness." Ijeoma nodded softly, her eyes warm with understanding. "We all stumble, Chibuzo," she said. "But the true test of character is in how we rise again, how we learn from our mistakes and grow. Together we have built something strong, not just for ourselves, but for our children and for the village." The couple sat in silence, watching the flames dance in the night. The lessons they had learned together had shaped their lives and those of many around them. The village of Umuoma, once filled with whispers of doubt, now spoke only of admiration for the couple who had overcome pride and jealousy with love and humility. The tale of Chibuzo and Ijeoma became a story passed down through generations, a reminder that true strength lies in recognizing the value of others and embracing the lessons life offers, no matter how difficult. The lesson from their story was clear. Pride and arrogance can blind us to the gifts we have right in front of us, but humility and love can heal even the deepest wounds. and in the end, it is love, patience, and forgiveness that truly make a family strong. Thank you for tuning in to Tales Motherland again. We sincerely appreciate your viewership and likes and comments. Please be sure to hit the subscribe and like button and stay connected to us for new intriguing African stories and folktale. Once again, thanks for watching.